The city walk is really a walk that we're going to do while walking in the footsteps of thousands of people that walk from Cato Manor all the way down to the city center. And the interesting thing about this walk is the place that they choose to walk. They walk right on the edge between the freeway and the sprawl, the suburban sprawl, right in that gap. The amount of people is quite considerable. It's about 6,000 to 5,000 people a day that walks up and down. It is a distance that is approximately 2.7 Ks. You're going to market? When I came to South Africa as a student of architecture, inspired with what I've been taught, really wanting to experiment around this idea of space making versus what we would define architecture or the built form. I remember going on the top of the ridge, looking right down towards the city, almost drawing a fictitious line straight down towards the harbor and just following that line, regardless where it was crossing. And when I looked around, this is where I saw thousands of people around me. And then I realized, hang on, I didn't draw that fictitious line to say, this is my walking trajectory. But that line, that invisible line that exists through people's energy, practicing their freedom through space is what pulled me into it. When you look at paths like that, the idea of Indlela, now we have a path. This path is a path that has been made by the walkers, that has subverted, in a sense, the kind of the pavement that was designed as a space to walk. People then start to carve their own path. It is that practice that we should be inspired when we're actually looking at how do we renegotiate our cities in South Africa. Now we're moving out of the township and we're reaching the entrance of the city. But this is a kind of a visual representation, if you want, of how the city has, in a very sensitive way, interpreted this function of the people walking next to the freeway. And you have this tunnel of trees that kind of enables the passage between the one and the other. It's really, really magnificent, especially when you're walking through it. It's a nice feeling. If we are looking for some kind of otherwhere space, for me, we would find it in the pavement. The pavement and in between private and actually public or the road. The pavement in a place that has been designed primarily for the luxury or for the need of the function of walking. But today, the pavement is of multifunctionality, from being a restaurant to being a hair salon, to being a healing place, to being, you name it, a hardware store. The way that people walk is no more in that rigid grid. Now we are a rubber grid. It is a grid that accommodates, that exchange, a grid that is elastic to the sense that it actually allows us to create our own meaning with what has been given to us. The notion of bringing to the people who are subverting this grid, in that subversion, they have empowered themselves in the way that they make their own space. The architect of today, what needs to be done to begin with is to communicate that to them, is to empower the knowledge onto our audience, onto the people for whom we think we are designing space. In that exchange of knowledge with practice, this is a beginning point for the new city.